Welcome, my friends, to a tribute to all the dead wrestlers, at least the ones that we knew growing up, and some of our favorites. But before we get started with this, let's toll the bell 10 times and have a moment of silence here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to have polite clapter from TeamB. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So there's been so many, wrestlers that's died over the past 30 years. The WWE or wrestling in general has the most deaths of any sports, quote sports, more than baseball, football. They have the most deaths, and it all comes from the steroid abuse and painkiller, whatever the case, all that stuff. But before we get into that, let's just talk about more of a recent tragedy in Dusty Rhodes and Piper. I was a fan of Piper in the late 80s, 90s. I didn't really catch Dusty till later on because I was more on the WWF side of things. But I do remember the polka dots. I do remember that. And but Piper, he was funny, man. He would Piper wasn't that good of a wrestler, but he was average. He was more of a promo guy. When he busted a coconut over Jimmy Snuka's head, and he had Piper's Pit, and he had Hogan and Andre. I think it was backstage when they were hyping up the promo for WrestleMania 3. And Andre, that's another one that we can get into. But what about Dusty Rhodes, man? That was one of your boys, right?
Yeah, Dusty. I love Dusty. Dusty was one of my favorite all-time guys to cut promos. That's what he was down in NXT when he was down there. He was the promo guy to train, the wrestlers and stuff how to do promos, man. Dusty, growing up watching Dusty back in the mid-'80s and so on, he was Dusty wasn't your typical looking wrestler. I mean, he was heavy, a heavyweight guy. He was from Texas, to me, Dusty was one of the best promo talkers back then, and you had quite a few of them back then, more so than you see today. You had to deal with the likes of Ric Flair, with Tully Blanchard, Magnum TA. You had Arn Anderson. You had all those guys back then to talk. Yeah. But Dusty was one to me, and he had that epic promo, and he talked about hard times, and he you could just almost believe what he had to say. And when he cut those promos, you're like, this guy really relates to me and how hard it is, because not everybody, when you watched wrestling growing up, you weren't just rich up anything. When you watch wrestling, kind of like us, middle class, that just really loved watching wrestling growing up. And Dusty, put on some great matches against Ric Flair, steel cage matches when they would wrestle back and forth. Tully Blanchard, he had a good feud with Tully Blanchard and the Horsemen. He had some great feuds. He tagged with Magnum TA, and they were awesome winning the Crockett Cup and tag team tournaments. And then when Magnum got hurt, him and Nikolai Volkov had gotten together. So it was just a great he was a great, whether it was a singles performer, whether it was tag teams, whether it was promo work, whether it was cage matches. Dusty, even booking. Dusty was one of those types that could do it all. And, to me, he was really one of my favorites growing up. So, yeah, Dusty was just he was a fixture in my wrestling days growing up, watching NWA/WCW. So yeah, man, it was just a really a loss to me when he passed away.
Well, a loss for me was my favorite wrestler of all time, Macho Man Randy Savage. When he passed away in 2011, I was at work, and I was sitting in my car listening to the radio. I was on my lunch break, and they said Randy Savage passed, man. I started tearing up, dude, because that was my favorite, man. He's the one that got me into – well, it's like this. Hulk Hogan got me into wrestling because he looked like a action figure, hero, whatever. But when I saw his work with Macho Man, I became a Macho Man fan because even at 4 or 5 years old, I could see Macho Man was a better worker. But, yeah, man, when Macho Man was I like the 80s Randy Savage more than the 90s Macho Man because 90s Macho Man was cool, but he was more, I don't want to say gimmicky, but the outfits in the 80s were more serious type of outfits. He wore just the regular tights, and stuff like that, and not the lizard attire. And but WrestleMania 3, Macho Man at the time was the Intercontinental Champion. He had that great match with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Even though Macho Man lost the title, they both were winners. But he had a long feud with Ricky Steamboat that year, man. It was really cool. And WrestleMania 4 is one of my favorite pay-per-views because that's when they had the World Heavyweight Championship tournament to crown a new champion. And Macho Man faced, I think, 4 contenders that night. And he won the championship, the heavyweight championship, for the first time. And he was in there, Miss Elizabeth and Hogan still in the spotlight. Good times, man. It was really good times. And, and he was a really good worker. He could sell. And all the wrestlers say they love working with Randy because he was soft in a good way. He ain't gonna give you no stiff hits or anything like that. He was smooth, I guess you could say.
Right.
But but that's the first thing I thought of in 2011 when I heard that he passed, man. Because WrestleMania 3 match and the WrestleMania 4, that was my favorites because it was all about Macho Man, not Hogan, but Macho Man. And WrestleMania 5 was not bad either. WrestleMania because they had the Mega Powers. Macho Man Hogan teamed up, Mega Powers, right, a.k.a. Curtis Axel and Damian Sandow. But the Mega Powers teamed up, and they were a team with Elizabeth in the corner. And then suddenly Macho Man turned heel on Hogan. He, turned on him because he thought Hogan was trying to mess with Elizabeth or whatever. And the truth is they needed a heel for Hogan at WrestleMania 5 because Hogan wanted his belt back. Right. But the year between WrestleMania 4 and 5, you had Macho Man Randy Savage on top as the world champion. And it was beautiful to see, man, because you didn't have Hogan all over it. And then at WrestleMania 5, Macho Man was the heel, and he had to drop the title to Hogan. But it was an excellent match, really good match, because Macho Man could tell a story, man. He could sell. It was great stuff, man. Then shortly after that, he became the Macho King with Sensational Sherry, and rest her soul too, because I was going to comment on her some. Sherry Martel, because she was good. Sherry Martel was also good, a good heel diva woman, whatever you want to call her, and then Macho Man had a short feud with Jake the Snake Roberts in 91. Oh, he had a retirement match with the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 7 that Macho Man lost because they wanted him to do more commentary or whatever. But just like 6 months later or so, Jack Tunney reinstated Macho Man on the roster, so he got back in the ring, and he had a few more feuds. He had a rematch with the Warrior at SummerSlam of 92, and he also had a feud with Ric Flair in 92. That was Macho Man to me. Then you have Macho Man on commentary doing Monday Night Raw from 93 and 94. And that was some of my best memories of Macho Man as well. Hearing him on commentary saying, it's, yeah, oh yeah. He made Raw fun, man. I like Macho Man on commentary. Right. And then when he was in WCW, when Macho Man went to WCW, it just wasn't the same to me. It's like when Garth Brooks sang "Lady is a Tramp." It just didn't look right. It was awkward. Like when Shane looked at The Undertaker on Raw, it was just awkward to me to see Macho Man WCW. Nothing against WCW. He just different to me. But the only run I liked with Macho Man in WCW was the feud he had with Diamond Dallas Page, because that was a good storyline and a good feud. And he put Diamond Dallas Page over. And he told him in the locker room before the match, because DDP thought he was going to lose. And they said, well, what's the outcome of the match going to be? And Macho Man said, I think I'm going to take the diamond cutter, you know, and he put DDP over that night, made him a star. And DDP still talks about that. And the What Up Mach, where he was a pimp, that was okay because he finally evolved his character a little bit. And finally, my last memories of the Macho Man is when he released a rap CD called Be a Man, Hogan, because I'm completely on Macho Man's side when it's him against Hogan, man. And he made a whole rap CD calling that motherfucker out for the liar and the shady man that he is and the coward that he is. And we all see how much of a coward he is now. But that depends if you're talking about Hulk Hogan or Terry Bollea. But Macho Man was talking about, you know, both, you know. And that's my last memories of Hogan. Macho Man. Macho Man, Miss Elizabeth, they got divorced. But he, you know, people say they're together in heaven and all that. I don't buy that because Macho Man was over Miss Elizabeth. He got over her. You know, he was over that and he moved on and he married a year before he died. He married his high school sweetheart, you know, somebody he knew from way back in the day. So he was over Miss Elizabeth, you know, but with all respect to her. Miss Elizabeth. But yeah, man, Macho Man, before he passed, man, he married his high school sweetheart, and I think that was, you know, that's nice, you know. And he had a little quiet wedding because he's a very private person, as well as I am, you know, and I respect that about him for being private like that, you know, because I like my privacy too. I know I do a YouTube channel now, but you know, I don't tell everybody all my business and stuff. I'm still, you know, mostly a private person. You know, I don't post on Facebook and talk about, you know, I just clip my toenails or something. I mean, I don't give that many details. You know, just a private person, you know, because I feel like, you know, we bond more. We ain't got to film everything, and a lot of our best memories can just be private. You know what I'm saying? Just stuff like that. But so that's all I got to say about Macho Man.
That's cool, man. He was a good wrestler. I agree there.
And very quickly, we could talk about recent Hall of Fame inductee, Big Boss Man. He also died. He a good wrestler. He stood out, super heavyweight. You know, he had just one of them characters from the 80s, man, that everybody recognizes. And he came back to the WWE in the late 90s, and he had on the SWAT uniform, the black attire, and he was a damn good heel, man, dragging Big Show on the casket and some of the sickest / funniest stuff you ever see. And Boss Man was a good heel, man. The past few years as a heel, it was pretty crazy. Yeah. Big Show, I'm going to pull your daddy, you know.
That was funny.
Kidnapped house-nosed dog. Pepper. He cooked this dog Pepper and made him eat it, man, in storyline. How sick is that?
That was funny. It was. You hate these days and times, man, these wrestlers you grew up with. What was it? What WrestleMania was that you said that, or we talked about that? It said like only 2 people living left out of the whole. What was it? WrestleMania 3? Was it 3?
It could be. I know WrestleMania 8. I just recently watched WrestleMania 8 from '92, man, and all them guys are just about gone. I know Ric Flair's the only guy left in the feud he had with Macho Man, because Macho Man, Elizabeth, and Kurt Hennig was out there, Mr. Perfect. All of them's gone, but Ric Flair.
Yeah,
and Bobby the Brain's still there if you count him, because he was part of the feud too.
Well, you talk about two, is I'll talk about a couple here kind of grouped in together, about 2 or 3 deaths. This is on the WCW side. One of them, of course, is the recent, you know, the tragic one with Chris Benoit in it. You know, that was a very, very sad and very horrible situation. As you know, a few years ago, back in actually 2007, it was that, you know, Benoit he didn't show up for the pay-per-view. And, they were worried, and they finally went to his house, and come to find out that they found his wife and son, they had passed away, and they found Chris Benoit. And at first they thought that they were all murdered, but then, WWE had went so much as doing a tribute show to him. And then they showed, as the night went on, more details were released that instead of it being, being a murder, it was actually a double murder-suicide where, what he did was he ended up killing his wife and his son, and eventually hanging himself, and relating that to whether it was related to steroids, concussions, whatever it may have been the cause of it happening. It's such a tragedy to see the things and effects what can happen when people get too caught up in wrestling and trying to be the biggest, the baddest, and the worst, because when people try to do that as a competition, they'll go at a few will actually go at nothing. They will stop at nothing to try to be the very best. And the sad thing about Benoit is just how gifted he was. I remember watching him when he first came in, and, he came in from back in Bret Hart Wrestling, Stampede Wrestling, before he went to WCW. And, he wrestled. He had a young core group of guys in WCW that were actually during the whole Monday Night Wars, per se, they were the kind of the ones in that middle, the upper card that were trying to carry it, because you've had a lot of talented guys. He was one of the main ones, because to me, Chris Benoit was one of the best as far as WCW. To me, technicians in the ring that you would face. He fought you matches. He didn't do a whole lot of high flying stuff. I mean, he did the flying headbutt. I remember him.
But hey, don't forget, he had a good WWE run there for a minute, because he beat Triple H. He beat Triple H and Shawn Michaels in the main event of WrestleMania 20 to become the World Heavyweight Champion. Just a little quick side note there.
Yeah, I was going to get it. I was kind of talking about his WCW. I was going to talk about his WWE.
My mistake.
Because he was in both of them kind of separate. That was WWF was kind of where his most recent one at, but I was kind of going back a little bit with his WCW.
Okay, going from A to Z. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's just that he did so well in the beginning of his career in wrestling there. So when he was he fought him and Booker T.
Ghost.
One of his Booker T's. Him and Booker T had one of their best, to me, and my best match.
Best of 5 series or best of 7 series. That was awesome. I remember that.
Yeah, for the WCW title, to me, that was one of the greatest sets of matches. Even Booker T. You ask Booker T that, he will tell you basically that same thing. Not none of the world titles that he won, but his matches in that best of 7 against Chris Benoit. To me, watching it was one of the best too, because Benoit was that mat worker. You don't see a lot of mat technicians these days. Everybody wants high flying spots, all these oh my god, holy shit kind of moments. And when Benoit is one of these guys that work on, he reminds me kind of like the way Ric Flair used to be. You remember how the old Ric Flair would pick a body part or your leg, and he would work on it through the whole match, and then finally put you in that move. That's the way Benoit was. Wrestlers don't do that anymore. They just hit a move out of nowhere, and that's the end of it. But when he went over to WWE, that shook up the whole scene for them, because WCW started sinking, and you have these 4 guys, the Radicals, which they called them when they came in. But you had Benoit, you had Malenko, you had Guerrero, and even Perry Saturn. This was before, and then you had later on you had Jericho coming in. So you had Benoit and these guys coming out there, and they were awesome. And and when he beat Triple H, what you're talking about, winning the heavyweight title, it was a great feeling of accomplishment that this guy here has won. He won WCW's title. Now he's won WWE's title. He's won U.S. titles. He's won so much, man, and to have so much going in his career, had his family out there, had him and Eddie, when both Eddie won the title, and they were together, and they were good friends in real life.
I know, that was a good WrestleMania moment, WrestleMania 20.
And the stuff was falling down, you see, with his kids in the ring, his kids coming to the ring and all, and it was just a great feeling to know and to see how much of a technician, and that's what I really appreciated about him. I hate that his personal life is keeping him out of the Hall of Fame, because if you were to see just to where he come from and his accomplishments, I feel like that his accomplishments wise would keep him in there. But as far as what he done, outside the ring, that's always going to keep him out. And that's why he's erased supposedly from WCW. I went on the WWE Network and saw matches with Chris Benoit in there. So he's still on there in matches. I've seen him in there in fights. But to me,
it costs too much money to digitize him out of it. But I think the Wrestling Observer has a Hall of Fame, and they got Benoit included. But I completely understand why WWE won't induct him. It's just going to be bad press if they did that. That's why they won't do it, because they're trying to keep a Sesame Street image, Not to mention that they got the most deaths of any federation.
Right.
And they're trying to be Sesame Street now, so stuff like that.
A lot of wrestlers out because of them being injured as well, which is ridiculous, because now I just ended up hearing yesterday that Neville, he's out with a fractured ankle. I saw a video of him. He actually kind of started to cry when he found out that his ankle was fractured. Which I don't blame him, man. I mean, there's so many wrestlers out there in WWE that, I mean, I can understand that WWE really wants to be able to
be clean, image.
Yeah, be out there for the fans, show everything that their talent can do, but I really do think that they're just pushing their talent way too much, because with these multiple injuries from these wrestlers, something's going on here, and you're really pushing them to the limit to where the body can only sustain so much. It needs to have a time where it needs a period of rest and actually recuperation.
Mm-hmm.
Because these wrestlers aren't robots. They're not like androids. They can't just take a beating constantly and you not expect there to be some type of consequence to come out of it.
Well, Vince McMahon's a vampire, so he's gonna suck them dry. He's gonna get all he can out of them.
Yeah.
But very quickly, one of my favorite wrestlers that also passed away was Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. He's in my top 5, probably top 3. And Mr. Perfect, when he debuted as a heel in the WWF, it was really cool with them. Them videos he had, them promo videos coming leading up to his debut, and he had the most excellent match with the excellence of execution, Bret Hart at SummerSlam 91, man. One of my favorite matches, Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart. Also, they had the rematch at King of the Ring 93. That was some of the best stuff. And when Kurt Hennig went to WCW in the mid-90s, I weren't feeling it too much. With all respect to WCW, it's just I like the Mr. Perfect character, and I like Mr. Perfect on commentary too. Another favorite moment with Mr. Perfect is when he was with Ric Flair as his executive consultant at WrestleMania 8, and that was his boy, him, Bobby the Brain Heenan. That was some good stuff, I miss Mr. Perfect, and Macho Man on his rap CD, he made a tribute song to Mr. Perfect, his perfect friend, and Mr. Perfect died tragically. I think it was drug overdose or something like that.
Who? Which one?
Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what it was.
Drug overdose, and but he was one of my favorites, man. He wasn't just a good bumper. He was a good seller. He could tell a story in the ring. But I just wanted to throw Mr. Perfect in there right quick.
Oh yeah. Ladies and gentlemen,
did you guys happen to mention anything about Brian Pillman?
Oh yeah.
Nah, not yet. That's a good one though.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let's just take this time to welcome the Ravenous Spectre into the conversation, since he hadn't formed since we were talking. And
speaking of Ghost, we got the Spectre.
Welcome to Ravenous Spectre.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Glad to have you in, Ravenous. Glad you got to join the conversation with us, buddy.
Indeed, sir. Glad to be here.
What's your thoughts on Brian Pillman, Ravenous? You remember the Monday Night Raw where he had the gun? Pillman's got a gun.
And actually, that was the first thing that came to mind when you ended up mentioning about wanting to do this about deceased wrestlers. That was one thing that came to mind. I was like, back in the day when obviously I was younger and didn't really know any better, when I saw that happen, I thought to myself, wow. I was like, this is so real. I'm like, oh my God, Stone Cold's gonna get shot. I was like, Brian Pillman's got a gun, and the cameraman's there, and then everything just went to snow. It just, got all fuzzy and everything, and so then I was like, I gotta find out what happens next week, and so
full of commercial breaks. I was like, man, I said, fuck you, WWF, all these damn commercials, man. Austin was beating the shit out of the security guards in the yard.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
He threw that guy in the little swimming pool.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was crazy because I mean, it's funny how their storied history had been too, because like they were the Hollywood Blondes back in WCW, and they were a tag team, and then they ended up becoming rivals in WWF at that point in time, and then he ended up Brian Pillman went over to the Hart Foundation, and he had that. Brian Pillman and the funny thing is actually Dean Ambrose, a lot of people have said Dean Ambrose kind of has that Brian Pillman kind of tinge to him, the way that Brian Pillman acted, and he has like that little bit of a psychotic type of twitch to him, with his character. And I mean, I thought Brian Pillman, I thought he was great on the mic. I mean, I thought, at least from what the few matches that I actually have seen him in, I thought he was good in the ring. And I mean, it was just real tragic how he ended up dying. I think it was a car accident, wasn't it?
I think so.
Not sure.
I can't remember if it was that or not. I think that it was, at least from what I had heard.
Now I remember Brian Pillman. Whoop! Echo. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. Go away, Echo. Anyway, in ECW, man, he jumped to ECW. He said, "I will piss in this ring." He just thought so loved ECW. Jim Ross said that Brian Pillman was so good, charismatically, that he could cut a promo with a mop. Man, I think he even had a match where he was wrestling with a mop. That's how talented. That's how talented he was, man. That's how charismatic he was, dude. You don't have too many Brian Pillmans in the world.
Well, he wrestled the first match on Nitro, the very first Nitro. He was in the very first match ever, the very first Nitro. So, yeah, it must have been something to put him in that, though. But that was a little tidbit when I was watching Monday Nitro from the beginning. That was the very first, he was in the very first one when they were at the Mall of America in Minnesota. He was in the very first match. I was like, I didn't even know that. I did not even realize that he was in that very first match.
This is ECW. I will piss in this ring. Oh man, those were my favorite moments. You remember when he hurt his ankle, they had to write him off TV, and Austin beat the shit out of him in the ring, and he put the steel chair on Brian Pillman's ankle, and he kept stomping it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And he came out with a crutch. It seemed like he'd been on a crutch for the longest time too.
Forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, too, man. Is Bam Bam Bigelow. Bam Bam Bigelow was one too that passed away. That was kind of had a career both in WWE, but and passed away. And also we're talking about guys that tragically happened. Remember Sean O'Hare? Remember him back from the late WCW run before that? Yeah. He ended up killing himself by hanging. He hung himself near the end there. And you also had like Canyon. Remember Canyon? And Canyon was one of those guys that followed DDP around. He killed himself. It wasn't long after he was gay, and he ended up killing himself. So
when you take them drugs and painkillers or any kind of drug abuse, and you get immune to it, and then you suddenly try to quit, a drug addiction will lead you into a deep depression, man. And that's probably why he may have killed himself.
Yeah, it was just a horrible thing, man. Him and you had a bunch of guys like I remember Earthquake. He passed away. Him and Hogan.
Natural disasters. But Bam Bam Bigelow, my favorite moment with Bam Bam Bigelow is when he fought Lawrence Taylor at WrestleMania. That just stands out to me. He had Luna Vachon with him, and he feuded with Doink the Clown, Doink and Dink. I remember that. Yeah. Doink and Dink. Bam Bam Bigelow. Bam Bam Bigelow had a good run in ECW as well. He had a little decent run there, fighting with Taz and shit like that.
Yeah, man. In ECW, he was a tough guy in ECW too. He didn't play at all. I mean, he was rough there. They let him be rough as they want to there. So he was a good moment.
Well, very quickly, one of my other he's not my top 10 favorites or anything, but I remember Yokozuna. Yokozuna, they don't give him enough credit. He was a strong heel in 93, 94 when he had that feud with Bret Hart and the Lex Express, and Luger finally slammed him for what it was, the PG WWF '94 when they didn't have nobody, Yokozuna was a decent heel, man. And that '93 Royal Rumble, nobody could throw him out. He had that his finisher, man. I was like, how can people take his finisher? That 550-pound man jumping off the second rope and putting his ass on your chest like that and smashing you. I was like, damn. I know he landed on his feet first, but shit, that's still dangerous.
Yeah.
That motherfucker crush you, man,
Exactly.
But yeah, I remember old Yoko, man, and he was portraying a Japanese character. He was Samoan, but when they turned Yokozuna babyface, he wasn't as good as a babyface. But 92 to 94, Yoko was pretty badass, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But,
right. And yeah, just you're amazed at the people that passed away. Like little old Crash Holly.
Yeah.
That funny back to 24/7 rule with the hardcore title. Then he did that weight machine, that weight all the way to the ring, that scale. When he went out there and he wanted to make sure he weighed out, it was so funny, man, watching him and Crash and Molly Holly. And I'll never forget though when they had that 24/7 rule. And remember Molly Holly had the title and she was going through one of that doorways and he slammed the top door. He put her out and he ended up pinning her right there. And I'm like, damn, that had. But yeah, it was sad. Him and Chris Candino. Remember, Sonny used to manage Chris Candino, the Heavenly Bodies. He passed away as well. I mean, you had Davey Boy Smith.
You want to talk about larger-than-life superstars? It don't get no better than Andre the Giant, man.
Mm-hmm.
He had that mystique to him. I was always fascinated by Andre as a kid. I was like, wow, at his size and girth and whatnot. And we all know the match he had with Hogan at WrestleMania 3. But, Andre was undefeated for like 10 years straight. And Andre was just he was a special attraction, all right,
Right.
And it was always a pleasure to see Andre. I think he passed in '93. He was on crutches right there at the end of it, man. He just couldn't stop growing. And that was a sad moment, but he's definitely one of the icons of WWF. Oh, Andre. So I just wanted to throw that in there. And another one, the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, man. He had from the Hart family. He had some good matches with that match with Bret Hart, SummerSlam '92. Excellent match. And the Bulldog teamed up with Owen Hart and Jim Cornette, manager. They had a good little tag team title run there. British Bulldog, one of the best workers in the Royal Rumble match. He would be in there the longest. I think it was Royal Rumble '95. It was Shawn Michaels and the British Bulldog carrying the match.
Yeah.
But yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think he died from a drug overdose and stuff. But the steroid abuse in WWF in the '80s is just terrible, man. Because they knew better, but they didn't know what would actually happen to them, and that's why you have so many wrestlers just dropping off the face of the planet like that. I'm amazed Hogan's still around, dude, because he used juice back in the '80s. He even admitted to it. That's why he has so much water weight in the '80s. And then, like when he went to WCW, he was Slim Jim because at the time Vince was on trial for the steroid scandal, and that's why Hogan was so skinny. He even shaved his mustache. Kevin Sullivan shaved his mustache.
Hey, Ravenous, who did you like? Who was one of your favorite wrestlers that passed away that you really had?
Eddie.
Yeah, actually, that definitely is true. Eddie, when Eddie Guerrero died, that was like, holy crap, dude, because honestly, Eddie Guerrero was one of my favorite wrestlers. I mean, granted, I never really watched WCW much. I was pretty much on the WWF side of things, but the few matches that I did see him in WCW was really something. And then once he got to WWF, it just amplified from there because that was like the main thing that I watched. And, he was with the Radicals and went out there and just his I think the evolution of his overall character when he was in WWF then was just it was amazing, but it was funny at the same time. Like he just came in as just being a wrestler when he was with the Radicals, and then he kind of went to just being like the tag team with Chavo Guerrero, and like we lied, we cheat, we steal, and they came out in the lowrider and all that.
Latino
and
Heat.
then, yeah, then he got Latino Heat. Then he got together with China, and and he went back and forth with being a face and a heel, and he just it really surprised me because how I found out about it was back when it happened. I think it happened the same day that I found out about it. I was flipping through the channels and came across, it was on the news. I don't know what news station it was on, but I found out. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, Eddie Guerrero died. I was like, holy crap, man.
And he was clean. He was clean. But the years of drug abuse in the past just caught up with him. But Eddie Guerrero, the two memories I've had of Eddie, about three memories. WrestleMania 20, Halloween Havoc 97 against Rey Mysterio. Awesome match. And remember, Eddie Guerrero defeated Brock Lesnar at No Way Out 2004, and stuff like that. And it was SummerSlam 2005, dude. He had that match with Rey Mysterio over custody of the kid. And he passed right after that. His nephew, he passed right after that, man. Dominic, he passed right after that.
Yeah. Of course, he looked just
Vicky
like
Guerrero was making out with Edge a year later.
Ray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Vicky making out with Edge the next year.
But it was just funny because Ray would drop. He would pick up the chair and he'd throw it to the other guy's opponent, and he would just lay down in the ring and he would be what am I doing with this? You hit him. Disqualified, and he would win. So I thought that was one of the funniest things, though. But like Ravens was talking about, WWE has a great sense of amplifying a gimmick till 10 times more than what it was. Because, like he said, that's all he was in WCW. He was a wrestler, technician, performer. But when he got there, they took his gimmicks. He came out in those cars, those lowriders, and stuff like that. They just kind of know how to amplify his gimmick and what he used. So he was awesome in that. That's why I've always gave WWE credit for, was their ability to amplify and promote and have these gimmicks go over. That's why it frustrates me now when we talk about wrestling, is that WWE can't do that anymore. They don't know how to do that anymore, I mean, like we were talking about in wrap-up the other night, or the weekly the other night, it's amazing how you look at guys that's in there today, like Roman Reigns, and you look at Dean Ambrose and how hard they're pushing him, but you look at how Ambrose was kind of not getting pushed, but he's going over with the crowd. So, I just gave him credit, but Eddie was really good when it came to stuff like that.
Yeah. Another one that comes to mind, side note, is a black man, Men on a Mission. Mabel Vizera.
Oh, yeah.
Big Daddy V. A black wrestler comes to mind.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm just playing about the black thing. But, yeah, man, Mabel, I wasn't too big of a fan of Mabel. I mean, he was okay, I guess, But just wanted to throw him in there because he passed, I think, about a year or two ago.
He was a big dude. Good God.
Yeah. Super heavyweight.
Yeah.
Mabel, Viscera.
Yeah, Viscera, yep.
But they had his wife and WWE had a bad falling out the last couple of years over his death.
Want some money, man.
Yeah, they've had a rough falling out over it, though. But honest question, is Brutus Beefcake, is he dead or is he still alive?
He's still alive because he was bitching on Facebook the other day about Hogan's trial. Because Hogan.
Oh, was he? Okay, because I have not heard anything out of him at all.
Yeah. Hogan disrespected Brutus Beefcake's wife in the trial at one point, and Beefcake went off on Hogan on a Facebook rant. Don Tony mentioned that the other night. Beefcake's still around, man. But Beefcake wouldn't have had a career. He would not have had a career without Hulk Hogan there.
Well, you always had those people. It's like, he was
the Zodiac. Yeah.
Like we missing too was, remember Road Warrior Hulk? One half of the Road Warriors. Awesome guy, awesome wrestler. I hated him when he passed away. he had tons of moments in every wrestling they went to. They captured. They're kind of like the Dudley Boys. I think they captured belts in just about every place they went to when they fought. Whether it was in NWA, WCW, WWF / WWE, they all had, they had belts wherever they went. But he was a tragic loss because now remember they tried to do the Road Warriors 2.0.
Oh man, I was just going to mention the Warriors, man. Yeah. I'm just going to mention. I was going to surprise you and say, remember? Oh, what a rush! Hulk, man, Road Warriors. One of my favorite tag teams. Seriously.
Remember how they kind of got after him about him being drunk and he climbed to the top of the Titantron and fell off supposedly.
That was reflecting his real life because he had alcoholism and that was kind of like reflecting his life or whatever. But yeah, man, it's crazy how that happened. But yeah, this is the Road Warriors, man. Awesome tag team in the 80s and 90s. They beat up people for real,
Yeah. They were great. They were one of my favorite tag teams back in the day. Absolutely. The Doomsday Device. There's been more than one occasion, I should say, that there has been times I've actually wanted to do that move on a certain few select souls, which shall remain nameless. But yes, just Doomsday Device them, flip them right the hell over.
Rest in peace to Sherry Martel. She was a good diva, good heel back in the day, like I said earlier. And rest in peace to the First Lady of Wrestling, Miss Elizabeth, the gorgeous Miss Elizabeth. Yeah. Miss Elizabeth was so beautiful, man, to me at least back in the day. So beautiful.
Yeah, and Chris Benoit's wife, Woman, from WCW. She was,
Woman.
She had, she was
Woman.
Very sad.
I am the game. Let's call her a woman.
That's terrible, man.
Yep.
Let's call her woman.
But it was though. But she was with Kevin Sullivan right when before with BNY, and I didn't even know that.
Right.
He put them in that storyline together, and he didn't even. He saw how that took off, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. That's like the old, what was it, Matt Hardy, Edge, and Lita love triangle, and the Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle and Karen Jarrett love triangle. I tell you what, they've been caught in some ones, but yeah, man, a lot of the females and stuff that it's very sad to see them pass away too. So Miss Elizabeth especially, she. Her and Macho were together. You thought they'd have been together forever, but you see, what happened to them. And then, too, is also, too, man, recently the Warrior.
Yeah. And it's really crazy how things happen with him because he was introduced into the Hall of Fame, and I think it was that very next night or something he gave that speech. And then he died like a week later or something, or a few days later or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Some people were saying, I saw on some Facebook wrestling pages they were mentioning, they said it's crazy because it's like they said it's like he knew or something, like something was going to happen to him, or he was just trying to basically state about trying to live life to the fullest. It's kind of haunting in a ways on how he said all of this stuff, all this inspirational stuff, especially with everything that he'd been throughout his life and the drama that he went through with WWF at the time. And here it is, he just suddenly just passes away, and you're like, holy crap, man. He was just in the Hall of Fame, and he was just talking that night, and then, bam, it's just like he was snuffed out out of nowhere. It was honestly surreal to me. I couldn't believe it.
Who we talking about?
Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, I think what happened.
I love Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, he was leaving I think they were leaving the hotel Tuesday morning, and I think what they said was he started feeling pains.
He just dropped dead, man. He had a massive heart attack. He cut that promo on Raw. I just think, man, that Hall of Fame speech he did and being on Raw, I think he just got a little too excited there. And then that Tuesday morning, he just dropped dead. He's too intense, man. He was so intense throughout his life. But I loved Ultimate Warrior. And when they came out, that self-destruction of Ultimate Warrior, it was funny, but I wasn't really buying it. And then I started following Ultimate Warrior on YouTube, and I was listening to his rants, his side of the story. I was like, okay, I could buy that. And then eventually him and WWE came to terms, and he came back, which was great. No more bitterness.
Yeah, Hogan
On either side.
Right, him.
But I got teary-eyed, man. Warrior passed, I got teary-eyed. Because he was a good father, man. He had 2 beautiful girls, and he was married to Dana Warrior, which is a beautiful woman as well that I follow on YouTube, man. She she runs Warrior's YouTube channel now. That's how I know about her. She's still, she be running the channel for him. Ultimate Warrior, man. That was like JP said, surreal, because how it happened. Like, I was like, what? Yeah. And one of the best documentaries from WWE is that one on Ultimate Warrior that came out a few days after he passed. They did a really good documentary about him, or they showed him coming to WWE headquarters, talking to Triple H and whatnot. But if we go back in the late '90s, if you guys know, let's talk about this other tragedy. It had nothing to do with drugs or anything like that. Somebody accidentally fell from the rafters.
Owen Hart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
how crazy was that?
I gotta have a little bit of something to say on that, and I gotta get your guys' motive on this too, because I'm still kind of unsure. But I'll tell you the brief story with that. I ended up seeing that pay-per-view. All right, I ended up seeing it with my dad. And I wasn't there. I'm just saying that I saw it on TV. I saw the pay-per-view. I saw what had happened, and the very next week when I went to class, one of my teachers had mentioned something. It was English class or something. I forgot exactly what she was teaching about, but she mentioned about what had happened. And what she said, well, what happened was when he ended up falling, he ended up dying in the middle of the ring, and they still continued on with the show. And she was talking about like how barbaric it was or whatever. But from my knowledge, what I knew at that point in time, I mean, I didn't call her out on it or anything in the middle of class, but I was still thinking, well, from what I gathered, he ended up hitting the ring and he was knocked out or something, and they took him out. They took him to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead at the hospital. He didn't die in the middle of the ring. But she was making it sound like it happened automatically, like right then and there, and they just continued on with the show. So what exactly is the true story there? Did he die in the ring, or did they end up in the hospital?
I think he died like moments later, just moments later. It was such a drop, the height of the fall, man. I mean, just nobody can survive that. And he died. It was like just a few moments later, to my recollection. What you got to say, Bill?
That's what I'm quickly trying to come out here. Let's see. He fell to his death during a pay-per-view event. He was processed of being lowered a harness to grapple line into the ring from the rafters for a IC match against the Godfather. It said he was being lowered, and at the time he would act entangled. Then he released himself from the harness, fell flat on his face. Let's see. Performed the stunts many times. Was moving around, come from Mars. Let me find it here. During the fall, let's see. Hart unintentionally triggered an early release. Viewers didn't see the incident. Television viewers didn't see the incident. During the fall, pre-tape video was shown on the pay-per-view as the monitors in the darkened arena. It said he was worked on by medical personnel in the ring. The live events broadcast only showed the audience. Meanwhile, Jim Ross repeatedly told us watching the pay-per-view that something had happened that wasn't a wrestling angle and that Hart was hurt badly, emphasizing the seriousness. He was transported to the Truman Medical Center while several attempts to revive him were made. He died from his injuries. It said that his cause of death was later to be from internal bleeding from blunt force trauma. So apparently they made several attempts to revive him. So apparently he must have died in the ring, and they made several attempts to work on him in the ring on the way there, and they were never able to revive him. But it says that WWF management controversially chose to continue the event. So
it was all over the news, man. I remember it being all over the news.
Yeah,
my family, my mom, and everybody was asking me about it because they didn't watch wrestling too much, and I was like, well, you know what's up with that wrestler that died? Because everybody knew about it. It was all over the news, everywhere.
They said he was used to doing that. They said he had done it. I'm reading here he's done it, because that was part of the Blue Blazer gimmick because he had done it on, it says Sunday Night Heat before the Survivor Series in '98.
Yeah.
You know,
it was just a misstep. You know, he just got unlucky that night, man. But
yeah, because
I remember the Raw.
I was thinking maybe they were continuing with the event that evening, and they were going to see exactly what was going to happen with Owen Hart, and then they probably had found out after the event, and then that's when they had that tribute show the next night for him. But I'm guessing they actually knew about it beforehand, and the show continued on.
But it did say here that while the show did go on, it was never been released commercially by WWF Home Video. So it must have never released the actual actual show itself here. It said a small photo tribute was shown before starting the fans that Owen Hart had died during the original broadcast. All of the footage of Hart was edited out of the event. And then it says, in memory of Owen Hart, May 7, 1965 to May 29, 1999, who accidentally passed away during this broadcast. So,
on side note, rest in peace to 1993's Evil Doink, the first Doink. The Evil Doink was cool. You know, he was a troll. You know, basically. But I forget his name, but he was a good wrestler from what I've heard about him and things like that. He was pretty good. The original Doink.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to throw him in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the old the Evil Doink. It was just sad things for these people to pass away because David Boy Smith had died, Bret Hart had died, so you got left really now is Owen and the Anvil Neidhart that's still around, that's still alive, but yeah, you just hate.
Yeah, rest in peace to Stu Hart, man. Which he died of natural causes, but Stu Hart was a tough son of a bitch. You know, he lived to be like 150. But him and Helen Hart, man, they both gone. And even Jerry Lawler predicted it back in the 90s in the Kiss My Foot match feud with Bret Hart. He said, "Your parents are deceased, Bret. Your parents are deceased, Bret. They look deceased." He predicted the future in that Kiss My Foot match, which they should bring back. They should bring back Kiss My Foot match, man. That was funny because Jerry Lawler he wouldn't wash his foot for a week, a month, or whatever, and he had the Kane, the dentist, with him. He's like, Bret Hart, I haven't washed my foot in a month. You want to put this big toe in your mouth?
Yeah, I remember that.
Hey, Bill, that's what I was saying. Like, I told Don Tony in the chat room the other night, I said, Don Tony, challenge Solid Monster to a Kiss My Foot match. I can see Don Tony doing that. Yeah, motherfucker. Yeah, you Monterots. My foot's all smelly for you and shit like that. Crusty and smelly and greasy and germy and DNA-ish for you. It's my foot match.
I remember that. Those matches were so funny to watch, and especially when old Jim Ross had to humiliate himself out there on Raw, kiss Vince's ass in the club and all that stuff. Yeah, man, I tell you, you just hate to see all these older guys like Dr. Death Steve Williams back in the old NWA times, man. Dr. Death didn't play, dude. I remember watching him growing up in old NWA, WCW. He was a tough fighter, man. Dr. Death, I mean, he just didn't play. And Dusty, I mean, you could ask Dusty. Will tell you about Dr. Death. Him and Ric Flair knew Dr. Death real good. Dr. Death was an awesome wrestler.
Yeah, I remember him from the Brawl for All and WWF Attitude video game. He was in there. Dr. Death, Steve Williams. Not to be confused with Steve Austin, because Steve Austin's real name is Steve Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it was sad though. But he played football, but he had that size for it. You could tell he was he says he played at football at Oklahoma, but you could tell because he always wore that Oklahoma jersey to the ring. When he fought, and I mean he just was one of those old school tough fighters, man. That's why I love that old school stuff because it was just to me, it looked real. It's like Ravenous was talking about. You looked at wrestling growing up, and you're like, is that real? I mean, because like I always relate that to you. When Magnum TA had that feud against Ole and Arn Anderson, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, and he was sitting in there in that chair to be interviewed, and they went there, jumped on him, and started beating him down. I'm like, God, they're killing the man. How's he going to be able to make it? Because it looked real. It didn't look like these fancy chair shots to the back now. I mean, they put a beat down on Magnum TA, and I'm like, oh, my God, they killed Magnum. He ain't going to be able to make it anymore. It looked real, you know. You're like wondering, because you wondered on there when stuff happened. Like, you watched Ric Flair, and I know Ravenous, he's seen any of old Ric Flair's old matches. His hair will be blood red at each one of those cage matches he was always in.
It bleed like a stuck pig.
Yeah, you would wonder if Ric Flair could make it. You're like, how's he still making with that much blood loss? Because his hair would be white in the beginning, blondish in the beginning, and blood red like Kool-Aid in the end of the matches. Because he just was always that way. But man, you know, Dr. Death, he was a really good guy. But he had died of throat cancer back in 2009. But he was one of the old school guys. I like to see him, you know, go into it because he was a really good, and wrestling in Japan too. He fought there as well. So, you know, along with Vader, Terry Gordy from the Freebirds.
Oh yeah,
that was a good thing too.
You know, you can also thank social media though nowadays with making it feel like wrestling isn't really. I mean, obviously, yeah, it's scripted and all of that, but back in the day before you ended up having social media, you didn't have any really real way of knowing what was what. And WWE is so prevalent in social media that there's no way to even really have any sense of believability nowadays when it comes to...
Kayfabe is dead.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to kayfabe.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just like Monday night, for example, when Jericho broke kayfabe and got in the ref's face, telling him about Neville breaking his ankle, telling him that he's hurt. And he got all up in his face, and they started cussing at one another, and he's like, he's hurt, you know, don't continue the match any longer. And so that's when he ended up shoving the ref, you know, for him to act like he got disqualified too. So, but yeah, man, I mean that was something, and it was, you know, good on Jericho for him actually looking out also for, you know, the guy he was wrestling against. So.
Oh yeah.
Hey Bill, you remember Hercules from the 80s and 90s WWF?
Oh, yeah.
They never talk about Hercules. I wonder what happened there.
Hercules.
Hang on a second.
I remember. Let me see. Oh man,
you got to look it up. But that's somebody they never really discussed.
Yeah, he was. It says here he was known as Hercules Hernandez, and then he become Hercules. No wonder his name, because he wrestled out with Manny Fernandez, the Raging Bull, which was back in old NWA times. It said it mentions here. It talks about after he left, he signed with WCW, which I don't even barely remember that though. It said that he had heart disease and he died in his sleep in 2004. It said that he wrestled. He was in WWE for 7 years, and he signed with WCW. And then he was called under a mask called the Super Invader. How bad is that? He beat Marcus.
Super Invader.
Yeah, Super Invader. Yeah, how bad is that? It showed that it said that he worked for New Japan as Hercules back there. But I remember, I almost forgot Hercules, but I remember him wrestling and back in WWE more so. You know, Ted DiBiase. Remember Ted DiBiase? Bobby had him first, and then Bobby sold his contract to Ted DiBiase. You know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's been, I think, 400 reported wrestlers that are deceased, and I can't really, you know, forgive me, but I can't think of any more that passed at the moment. I have one in mind, but I'm going to save him for the very end of the show. So you guys have any more deceased talents you want to talk about that come to mind?
Not really particularly at the moment that I can really think of, honestly.
I just Mike Awesome killing himself a few years back was a sad thing. I just hate to see these wrestlers kill themselves, you know, through whatever the case may be. That's been a very sad thing, though. But yeah, just him. Him would basically be the only other person note that I would mention would be with him. And one too is Nature Buddy But he died of old age. Was Nature Boy Buddy Landale, one that passed away too. Was an old school wrestler. So other than that, that's about it for me.
All right, and my mystery deceased talent is rest in peace to Paul Bear.
Paul Bear, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Paul Bear.
Oh, yeah.
Rest in peace. Oh.
One of the greatest managers.
Yes. Oh, yes.